Welcome to the Disinfo Detox, where media literacy meets the headlines. We are the Media Literacy Wrecking Crew. I'm Nolan Higdon, and joining me as always is our resident philosopher, Dickie.
What's up, detoxers?
And of course, we're also joined by the sharp and savvy Sydney Sullivan.
Hey, detoxers. If you're wanting to keep democracy alive and help us spread media literacy, consider becoming a paid subscriber on our new Patreon account. Patreon is just going to be patreon.com.disinfodetox. It's also going to be linked in the show notes today. So even if you can't subscribe, there's plenty of other free ways to kind of help out with this program. You could like, follow, comment. Any of these things are helpful. You could share with a friend that you think is going to like information like this. So even negative ones can help boost the algorithm. So drop a comment, it helps. But if you are engaged and want to be interested, all of that is helpful. So let's start detoxing.
Awesome. So I want to kick off today. I came across kind of an interesting study that just came out on July 1st, and it's from NewsGuard, which, I've made no secret about critiquing NewsGuard. It's entity that's supposedly spotting fake news, but it's created and has people on its board from a lot of the same problematic corporate news media that we critique, and a lot of people from the military industrial complex, like Richard Stengel and others like that. But that aside, I think that the study itself is still pretty interesting when you look at the data. And what it concludes is about 49% of Americans, according to their study of 1,000 Americans, about 49% of those 1,000 Americans, they believe false claims. And some of these false claims are like ones that have been, debunked, but it was interesting things like pallets of bricks were strategically placed in Los Angeles, designed to arm demonstrators during the June deportation protest. That was a false claim that was believed. Or another claim was that Republican Senator Lindsey Graham and Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal spent over $800,000 in taxpayer funds on hotels during a Ukraine trip. That's a false claim. The white genocide claims in South Africa was another one that was widely believed. And so, I thought the study was kind of interesting and something we probably want to talk about because, a lot of this stuff we've covered on this show and talked about how this fake news is out there. And, given how much we see it out there and how much it's talked about, we sort of assumed, right, there's some substantial portion of the population that believes it. But this study seems to confirm that as well. So I don't know. What did you guys think when you see a study like this, especially, 10 years after the moral panic over fake news, right? There was all this money and freak out to do something about it and pressuring big tech to censor content and yada, yada. But, here's a study that says really that none of that worked.
Yeah, it's not super surprising. I think especially in relationship to social media and the ability for things to either go viral or for things to be reposted and retweeted. It's just so easy to allow things to kind of get out of hand than it is to check things. I think a lot of times in my classes, I have a lot of students who tell me, which I think is a very vulnerable and honest thing to say, is that I wish that I fact checked everything that I reposted, but I don't. And I just don't have the like mental wherewithal to do that. And I do think that that's a very honest opinion and an honest reaction to, well, we just need to fact check everything. And my students are like, well, I just don't have the bandwidth to do that, and it is really difficult for me. To which I kind of then go into discussions about, well, then why do we need to repost things that we don't know are absolutely true? And so that becomes the conversation that we end up having is if you don't have the bandwidth to actually dive into this topic, then maybe at the very least we can go and make sure that we're not disseminating this information or repeating this information when we don't have the ability to really do a deep dive into it.
Yeah, that's a really great point. You just ended on the question of if you don't know the whether it's a valid headline or not, why post it? I think yeah, this sort of shift, a norm shift of just getting getting a headline out. Like I think it was 10 years ago. I remember CNN getting in trouble. I should research this, look this up. Maybe we can talk about more. But just there was I was in college in DC, and there was some like military. I think it was like a military celebration happening on the Potomac River, but the CNN thought it was like an actual military thing happening, and they just wanted to get the headline out, and they didn't double check. They didn't make the calls to see what was going on. And it kind of started a little bit of a freak out, a little bit of a panic about, oh my God, what's happening on the Potomac? But I just like that sort of, that rush to get the headline out, to get the clicks not that necessarily your students are doing that, but I think it certainly set the tone for, just immediacy rather than veracity or like why did that the culture shift? I think it's probably the mainstream media that's leading the way a little bit.
You took the word right out of my mouth there. I was about to jump in and say, Dickie, which is culture. I think that's been a debate in media literacy circles about how much content, I guess, to include in a media literacy classroom. But I think you do have to have some cultural analysis to understand that, because like Sydney said, it's not that these students or any of us are just kind of useful idiots who randomly post things. There's a culture, there's economic incentives around it, and to understand that is to really understand the media. So I think really there's something connecting the two of both of what you guys said there needs to be a part of a media literacy education.
Hey Detoxers, this is the Disinfo Detox. If you believe in media literacy for all, help us keep going. Become a paid subscriber at patreon.com/disinfodetox. There's also plenty of free ways to support. You can like, comment, follow, or share. Every little bit helps. Thanks for supporting the Disinfo Detox, where media literacy meets breaking news.